My hip flexors just felt like they'd never release again. And by the time I got to 46 wall balls, I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I was literally lay on the ground. I couldn't walk for a month after. It will never be perfect again.
So that was a snippet of the documentary I made on Jake Dearden for pliability. If you want to watch the full thing, I'll have it linked below, but let's dive into the behind the scenes.
So I'm going to be traveling to Manchester tomorrow for quite an exciting shoot, and I thought instead of just doing my normal thing where I, show the finished result and then talk about that, I'm going to show the whole thing. So I'm going to start with the pre-production that I'm doing now, doing my last few checks, then into the actual production, a little bit behind the scenes tomorrow, and then finally what we learned from the shoot. So the first thing you always want to do way before you're at this stage is actually understand what you're shooting. So you need to know the goals of the shoot, the deliverables, the destinations where you can be delivering the content, get it approved by whoever it is that's responsible for it, all those things that happen in Mininote. Oh, I'm not wearing my ring. As I was saying, you want to be doing all that pre-production stuff way before the actual shoot comes. That way, when it comes to the shoot day, you know exactly what you're doing, what you're getting, what the client's going to be getting, what they're paying for, and it's just a smooth run of show. You don't want to turn up and be like, all right, cool, what can we create? Not very professional. So we're going to be creating some content with Pyrex athlete Jake Dearden. But the reality of shooting a professional athlete is you don't get a lot of time to shoot them. Unfortunately, we only have 4 hours to get a bunch of different assets. We need to get a YouTube video and I think 5 other social deliverable posts, as well as multiple stills that can be run for ads or a bunch of stuff. So we have a lot of content to get in this amount of time. So again, it's super important that your pre-production is dialed in to the minute if you can, just so you can be as efficient as possible and, get everything you want. So the main deliverable that I'm responsible for is the YouTube video, because from that we can kind of create a lot of different assets anyway, and some of the social posts will come from the stuff or the content inside that YouTube video. The YouTube video will be about his journey back from his back injury where he was nearly paralyzed. I think did he slip a disc? He done something to his back where it was bad. Because I'm responsible for that YouTube piece, I need to kind of work out how can I fit that entire piece around this video, around the shoot. So the main way I'm going to do that will be using an interview. That will be the kind of spine of the YouTube video where we'll keep going back. We'll use that as voiceover, doing B-roll, giving him context, as well as getting loads of old footage from his high rocks competition, his current competition, his training, all of this stuff around it. And then how Pliability is involved in that, because Pliability is the client. There will be where the YouTube video will be hosted to, it'll be their channel. So it all kind of has to wrap around that video. Not going to get into how I created the storyline, all that stuff now. That will be saved for another video, but we'll dive into the gear. So I have already started packing, and I'm actually using a new backpack that PGY Tech sent over. It's their tactical backpack, I think it's called. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's solid, it's well padded. It has, I didn't even notice it has this front pocket. Yeah, it's very useful because I kind of ran out of space. Oh, nice. Yeah. So camera-wise, main camera, the A cam, will be the Sony FX6. That will be my main handheld body, and it'll be the A cam for the interview. The lens I'll be using on that will be the 28-70, the Sony f2 version. It's my favorite lens, it looks incredible. My B cam / gimbal cam, I just need to move this to the side for now, will be this over here. So the reason it's set up is because I have been testing this out because this digital ring is quite new. Just want to get kind of grips with it, understand where I want the monitor and that kind of stuff. So I set this up so I'm well versed in how I want this to work. Because I was very worried about the HDMI, if it was going to hit, but I've got a cable that is long enough. On this, I will have the Sigma 24 1.4 as the main gimbal camera, where I can get quite a wide perspective. And this will be really useful for the running shots that I'll have on my one wheel. Photo camera and I guess C cam, will I use it? No, probably the BTS cam, to be honest, will be what I'm shooting on now, the A7 IV. I'll get all my stills in that. I have the 35 in here, but I'm not bringing the 35. That shouldn't be in here. We leave that there for now. I don't need too many lenses. You don't want to get caught up in this. So I have the 16-35, 24, 28-70, and then my telephoto. This will be on the photo camera. Beautiful lens. This is the 50-150 f2 from Sony. And I'll probably use this as my second angle lens. So I'll put this in the FX3 when I do the interview. I think here I can probably go to around 85, 100 mil. That'll get me a nice tight angle. For the interview shots, I mean, I don't know how they're going to turn out at this point, but this is the kind of reference we have from the mood board. We quite like this, the high angle, slightly looking down. It just creates that little bit more of a vulnerable look. to the subject. So that is what we'll be doing there. Audio wise, I will be using the Sennheiser MKE 600. I just have this kind of weird setup right now because if I'm outside, I'll use this one. If I'm inside, I will use this one. So I can just swap it around. This makes it a little bit easier for me to distinct between the both and make sure I'm packing both. And it kind of protects the mic. I'll be using these Hollyland Lark 2S, I think they're called. I'll put that down here. That'll be like my backup audio. I won't use this exact unit. I'll use the, oh, it's over there. I'll use the actual lav mic that comes with it. So I'll feed that under a shirt, but the lav mic I'm here just as a backup when I do have the Sennheiser boom audio for that interview. Lighting wise, I'll be using this key light, which is the Aperture 400X. That will be placed to his left side. And the reason I already know the camera is going to be on his left, the rim light behind him, is because the way the gym is set up, I have shot there before. I know kind of where things are and where would look good so I can create the most depth. The last piece of gear that I briefly mentioned before will be my one wheel. That's just going to allow me to get some nice rolling shots when we are doing all the running content. Now, I was like, do I really need it for just the running shots? But because of how good it does get, and we do plan to get quite a lot of running content, especially with him talking to camera whilst running, that's probably the best way. You know, if you haven't seen it, this is my one wheel. This is the kind of stuff I get whilst riding my one wheel. So yeah, this makes that a lot easier, that whole process. So yeah, I'm gonna finish packing this all up and then I will see you tomorrow.
So it's been about a month since I've shot all of that, but I've been super busy, unable to make this video, but we're finally wrapped on the project and uploading everything today. We kicked the shoot off driving out to these hills where we were able to get some really cool running content with like a really nice backdrop of the kind of countryside, the kind of hills that he'd be doing his hill sprints, his runs, all that kind of stuff on. Then we headed back to the gym and got into the interview. So I set all the lights up, set all the mics, set all the stuff up, and it actually went fairly smoothly. You know, we were in kind of a time crunch, we didn't have loads of time, but we managed to get everything. I just wish the gym looked a bit better because everything is all black. It's just hard to make it as interesting, but I think we did okay. We finished off with a bunch of B-roll, stuff like we can use to layer up on top of the interview, all the ad stuff, all the other social posts, the general training and stretching B-roll, and that was pretty much it. Wrapped up, got another Uber back to the station, missed our train by 2 minutes, which was so annoying because that 2 minutes saved us an entire, delayed us an entire 2 hours of getting home. So that was, yeah, very annoying, but yeah, we managed to get everything done in around 3.5 hours, I think. So all in a good day's work, all in a day's work. So tackling all of that and going through some of the lessons I learned, I think that's probably the most valuable stuff I can share from this shoot as opposed to me just showing this is what we shot, have a good day. The first thing that I learned was in the car scene. So when we're driving over to film him doing the hills, I was sat in the front next to him. And although I think it looked okay and the kind of footage you can get looks quite good, I probably would have preferred to be in the back, kind of back opposite him shooting, just because when I was framing it up, I was filming kind of like this, where I had the monitor on the screen here and I was like this. Don't know how well this is showing, but I was like holding it backwards with the lens pointing to him next to me in the car, but I was like, maybe this is an easy way to show it. I was kind of like this, trying to keep it steady from all the car movements, trying to keep him in frame, but then the camera was slightly tilting. It just wasn't the best because I was sat next to him. It probably would have been better if I was in the back opposite and then shooting that way. That way he's not kind of looking over while he's driving safely. And I think you can get some cooler shots where he's like silhouetting him, don't blow out the background, just have him talking like that. So that was probably one learning. Again, being a bit picky, we were in quite a rush. We were like, cool, as soon as we got there, dropped our stuff off and got straight to the hills. But I probably would have done that differently just because it was quite difficult to frame up those shots. Then diving into the interview, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, the look. I just wish we could have had a bit more going on. I wish I could have had an additional light on his rim. It was a bit dark on that side and it was a completely black gym, so everything just absorbs that light out anyway. That wasn't the most ideal. Tried to still in the second angle show the barn doors, but yeah, I was just trying to make it as interesting as possible, having different pockets of light, but it was just quite limited with the gear we had and the amount of time we had to set up the interview. Things I tried to avoid the most, because I really hate when it happened, is when a talent is just sat there, you know, waiting to the interview to start. They just sat there in position like that, but because you haven't got the light ready or this ready or whatever it is, it just takes quite a long time. I hate the whole experience. So I try to get things done as efficiently as possible. Sometimes you can't be a perfectionist. You have to just, all right, this is what we're going with, because yeah, There's time constraints, there's other things you've got to shoot. You can't always have the perfect setup. In my opinion, creating a documentary just based on the answers you get from an interview is one of the hardest editing processes there are, because you can't do that much pre-production if you don't know what they're going to say. So now let me show you my editing process of how I go from the 40-minute raw interview, cutting 85-90% of that into a 6-minute full documentary. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go through absolutely everything, start to watch through, start to listen, understand everything he said. If there's any key points or things definitely need to be in the video, maybe put a marker and a note with that. But from that, an extended part is actually just to go through and chop up each question. So I can do this without even listening to it. From the waveform, I know when it's bigger, he's speaking. So I can cut this up there, and then I'd listen to what he's saying here, and then I would then put a text layer just like this, and I would put what that topic is. So let's say at this point, he's talking about breaking his back, slipping a disc. So I'll put down back injury. And then on here, I would actually just remove the opacity because I don't actually need it to be seen on screen. This is more so I can now see as a reference all the topics that we have. So I would do this for the entire talking bits. And if I go back on the timeline, you can see where I've done that for all these different sections. So I have back injury, I have the positive mental attitude on the back injury, him commuting at London High Rocks, Stockholm, all these different topics. So I know at a glance exactly what is on the timeline. From there, when I have all these different topics, I would actually write these down in a different board. You can use any platform for this. I was using Figma. I found that the easiest. And I actually put everything in a board like this. This is a screenshot because I don't have the original because I've changed the file format now. But essentially, all the different colors are like the different locations for the interview. And yeah, these different points just show me from like a top-down point of view, what do we have in this whole video. Then from there, I would then organize this like this, so I can create almost like a topic timeline and start to understand, okay, cool, I'm going to start the video off with this snippet of the injury at the key point for a hook. I'm going to go into this, into that, and that way when I'm then going back onto the editing timeline, I can just drag these topics into that order, and I've already got a great starting base for the video. This has been one of the best ways for me to actually be able to craft a story. There's just so much footage, so much stuff being told. This just makes it easier because you can see the exact topics and just order them up, and then you have a story. And then if I now just open up the actual timeline used in the video, a bit bigger, so you can still actually see the text points I do have, and that's another reason why I keep it at 0% opacity, just because I don't want to potentially, you're watching the video and suddenly you just see on the screen come up with marathon. And the reason I kept it was just to, again, know when I'm placing things in. If I want to change things around, it's a lot easier to know if it's directly above the clips. All right, cool, that whole section is this topic, and just keep it like that. So yeah, this is the rough timeline. My yellow and orange is the interview clips, so I know from that. This green here, this is the fixed audio, so I've put it through like an audio processor. I think it's the Adobe Podcast one. Once I have like picture lock and everything is ready, I'll then run it through that just to get rid of the kind of gym echoing backgrounds. So one thing I did learn, obviously going into this, I knew we wanted to really talk about his back injury, how he slipped 2 discs, he was like near on paralyzed, excruciating pain, all that stuff. The way he said that story, I'll just play it.
So the first time my back injury occurred, I was doing a high rocks and I got to the wall balls. It was actually my first ever pro race. I got to the wall balls. I got 40 reps in and I felt a twinge in my back. And by the time I got to 46 wall balls, I had to stop. I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. I was literally lay on the ground. They actually wheelchaired me across the finish line, which I think there is an embarrassing photo out there of that.
How I've now done it like this.
So the first time my back injury occurred, in my first ever pro race, I got to the wall balls, 40 reps in, and I felt a twinge in my back. And by the time I got to 46 wall balls, I had to stop. I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I was literally lay on the ground.
For me, just adds that more dramatization because it's not going straight from, I did this, but it's like, and then I got to the wall balls. And then this happened. And because of that kind of thing, that kind of slowing it down just makes it a bit more dramatic. In my opinion, maybe that's just me, but that paired with the music, the silences, the back screens, I think just dramatizes it that much more. And along with that, with some of the questions that we got in the interview, I do wish we could have dove a little bit deeper. That's kind of my fault for not doing the interview. Tash, she was asking the question. She did a great job. But when someone else is asking the questions that you've written or executing the plan that you've written, they're not going to go as deep because they don't really know what you're thinking in your head. So for a lot of his answers, I would have not just gone and followed the script, but I would have like responded back to what he said. So if he said X, Y, Z, I'd say, instead of going to the next question, I'd be like, but why? Or just going deeper so you can try get a bit more out of the top level, because a lot of the times, you know, when people are being interviewed, they just want to say the first thing that comes to their head, and that's fine. But you can also get another layer of that if you just try and pry a bit more, you know, try and ask why, ask their motivations, and just go that layer deeper, and then you end up getting a lot better answers. But yeah, overall, we did get some good stuff. I just personally looking back and think, that's kind of obvious, or anyone could find this out. Like, how can we get into that layer deeper and really get in the mind of the athlete or of the subject? A good tip on this as well. So some of this stuff was from, they sent us like the entire YouTube video as opposed to like clips cut out individually. So if that ever happens to you, what you want to do, if you do have like a massive file, let me go across to it. So if I take this, for example, and this was this whole clip, obviously massive long YouTube video, not cut up clip by clip, but you can see in the layer below, I do have that all cut up. How to do that is simply, if I hide this, click on that video, go into your timeline and delete scene cuts. So now it's going to go through that YouTube video and cut through every single frame where it changes. And then you're left with this. So I don't need the duplication, but you can see we have everything cut up. So it just changes it at every scene change. And it makes it a lot easier to be able to pull clips from full videos. I actually do this quite a lot. It's one of the methods that I learned how to edit certain things. I might see a video on Instagram and think, yo, that was crazy. But watching on Instagram is very difficult, or just playing it back is very difficult to really break it down and understand. So I'll pull the video into a timeline and then just actually work it out. How are they doing these certain transitions? How are these putting these certain effects? What is the framing? And that way it's a lot easier for me to digest and learn from it. So when I was putting the finishing touches on this interview shot, I thought it looked good, but I thought I could add just a bit more interest into it. And it's something that most people wouldn't even notice on this, but I've added a slight vintage look to this image. If you look at the corners, the edges, it slightly bows out, kind of giving that barrel distortion, kind of warps a little bit. I just think that's a cooler look, in my opinion. And that is all done using a plugin called Lens Node. It's a plugin that allows you to get the characteristics from a cine lens, vintage lens, all the kind of cool creative lenses on your footage, and it's really, really clever. So if I open that node up, you can see camera Rec 09, this is the color space we're in, but I'm currently using a Petzval Pro lens, and that is the kind of swirly bokeh lens. So you can see like you get that kind of warp and the type of swirly bokeh into this image. Again, if I remove that, that is the original, so you can really see the barrel distortion and the difference that's making. I'm not going to dive fully into the entire plugin here because that would take way too long. But yeah, I have put this whole thing on, and the extra sauce to this, to how to really make it look realistic, is to use this with DaVinci Resolve's AI depth map. Because if I show you the version without the depth map, you can see the plugin goes, or the characteristics goes across the entire image. There's a bit of blur on him here, a small bit on the face, as opposed to where it was before, where it's behind him. How the real lenses work is, when you have a subject in focus, the effect isn't on that subject, it's on the out of focus areas. So if I have it like this, it kind of gives it away and it makes it almost like I've just got like a radial blur around the image. And that's what I'm going for. So using the depth map, I'm able to take the subject from the background, or separate the subject from the background, put this effect behind him. And that to me makes it look a lot more realistic. Looking at this image, maybe I'm biased, but to me, you can't tell that I've put a plugin later on. It kind of looks like that's what the lens created. So yeah, shout out to Matty Apoya for that tip about blending it with the depth map, because that's completely changed the game. The downside to this though is that it does make the playback really, really slow. Like, I have a pretty powerful machine, and if I try to play that back, I can't. I'm 1-2 frames per second. It's just really not. It's way too power consensuous. If I stop playing it, we obviously get the full playback there. So I would put this on at the end, once you've got picture log, once everything is good to go, just because it is so power hungry. So overall, I'm actually really happy with how this project came together. I think with the limited resource, limited time, I managed to get a really good final asset, or final assets. And yeah, obviously learned a lot, and something I do, which I recommend for you as well. I actually have a notes page of all the things that I learned from shoots. That way I can not many mistakes again. Not to say I'm not learning from them, I had to write them down, but more just when I write them down, I would go back to them before a shoot when I'm prepping and think, all right, cool, how am I going to make sure I don't do this, make sure I don't do that, how am I going to fix this? Just a good practice to get into, just so you can start learning from each shoot and not just trying to remember everything just because, oh, at the time you might be thinking, oh yeah, let me make sure I don't do this again. But you have a load of other things to think about whilst you're on set and making all these decisions. So putting those in a notes page just makes the whole process a little bit easier. So yeah, if you've got a lesson, laugh, or a light bulb moment from this video, I'd really appreciate if you drop a like down below. Or if feeling nice enough, you could hit the subscribe button, but I'll leave the option up to you. That being said, I will catch you in the next one. See ya.